Cookie here. It's the Pat and JT podcast.
Pat and JT podcast.
So super excited today on the podcast. We have Kari Morfeld is with us, PhD, Dr. Morfeld. Right? Now listen to this. This is really cool. And then we'll tell you how we met her and what she does. She's the director, elephant reproductive physiologist, and works both in the United States and in Africa.
Correct.
You're here in Omaha. Are you from Omaha?
I'm from a small little farming community, Creston, Nebraska.
Creston, Nebraska.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours northwest of here.
Okay. All right. So first how we met her. We've talked about, and we haven't had Les on our podcast yet, have we?
He had to skate, otherwise we can have him stick around today.
Les Vogler and his brother Lauren Vogler are from Ashland, and they have, and you may have seen some of the pictures we posted online of their new podcast, which is called The Bullpen for Parkville Media. And one of the posts that we put up there was of him in his T-shirt, and it's Vogler Semen Center. And it says we're pretty handy. And what it has to do with the breeding industry, in the cattle industry in particular, is primarily where they started from. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they help. What would be the best way to describe what they do? Because they help.
He said they make bulls happy.
Well, that's one thing.
That's what Les says.
That would be his version. Yeah.
Les says a lot of things. But they also, on a more scientific level,
right.
They help with the breeding industry,
right, and
continuing, especially depending on the lineage, right. I guess you want to say, of different breeding programs, so that they can strengthen them, and also that you can have a super great bull that maybe is on the East Coast,
right, that
you would really like to breed with the cattle or the cows that they have on the West Coast,
right,
and you'd have to transport the whole animal.
Exactly. It's
yes,
pretty powerful, and you can even you can freeze it for an animal that, of course, eventually will die and be deceased. So you can use semen from a deceased animal that was really genetically valuable years and years after he's passed away. So his genetics can carry on.
So some people who have been through the artificial insemination for people.
Mm-hmm. You just never think that you do it for animals ever.
Right?
Cross your mind.
Because there are other obstacles that they may have to try to overcome.
Exactly.
That's what they're trying to do for the animal industry.
Yeah.
And
for animals too, that could be going, not even the animal industry, but going extinct and extracting semen from 100 wolves of whatever are left. Right. Extract semen, and then you could potentially keep that going, line going.
Exactly, which will lead into what I do. But that's a huge part of assisted reproduction in endangered species is even if, you don't feel really sound about their habitat, their population, the current status, if you collect semen, you can store it.
Yeah.
And then when things improve or just to increase population numbers, you can inseminate and propagate a species that way. It has huge potential, which sounds crazy.
It's unbelievable.
So there's so much to talk about here. Backing up here again, we met you because Les had a party. Because his wife has wandering wine events, and that's because they met some great people in Napa Valley,
right?
At John Anthony Wines, and they had this great wine tasting in Tecumseh, and we went down to it, and we talked about that 3 times before it happened, and you were there, and so that's how we met you
on the bus on the way down, and you're like, "What do you do?" And you explain. I go, "Wait, what?"
You guys were sitting next to each other.
Yeah, we're sitting right next to him. I'm like, "Wait, what?"
You do what?
Do what? Say that again. I've had some wine. Say that again.
You were still getting over Les and what Les does.
I was. I was just getting used to hearing Les say semen 50 times a day. And then I'm sitting next to you, and you're like, "Oh, what?"
Oh, and that's why you kind of looked away, and then 5 seconds later, your head went back. What do you do?
You what? Say that one more time.
That's a common response.
I bet it is. So, I got to ask. So, how did you get from Creston to doing this, and you stay in Omaha?
Right. Well, it was definitely not that straight and narrow path, right? Which I didn't think it ever would be. Even as a young child growing up in a farming community, all my uncles, farmers, cattle farmers, I always knew I wanted to do something with animals, but I also knew it wasn't necessarily a vet. And in Nebraska, you think that's your only option with animals, right?
That's true.
And so I just always had this feeling. I was fascinated with wildlife. So I always thought, I'm going to work for National Geographic, right?
Nice.
But everybody's like, yeah, every kid thinks that, right? Go on to school. But I went to Nebraska Wesleyan, majored in biology. everybody thinks you do pre-med or pre-vet, and I just knew that wasn't it. I didn't know what it was, but it was something else out there for me. I did an internship at the Omaha Zoo. After that, day 2, they asked me to go to Africa.
Wow.
Day
Right?
2?
That was
Right,
okay, my life is over. It's perfect now. I can
Right.
be done, right? And that was reproductive biology. They were doing a program on Cape Buffalo and collecting semen from buffalo. A whole nother, we'll get there. And so it was really fantastic. And quickly I realized the role of reproductive science, and we call it assisted reproduction if it's not natural, in endangered species. I went and did my master's at UNL in animal sciences, but of course there's no programs for, at that time, endangered species, elephants, tigers.
Wow.
So I specialized in pigs and did projects on pig semen.
Well, it's okay. They do say that. I mean, pigs are like the like perfect animal. I mean, for
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons, medically speaking, because they use it in place of humans.
Yep.
When they're testing procedures or
Yes.
they're testing, things like that.
Yeah.
And culinarily, they're very
So okay,
almost
that
perfect.
and that has nothing to do with what we're talking
I-
about, but bacon.
But bacon.
Okay, so
It must be noon. Thanks,
Right,
Dad.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Starving. It is noon.
I knew it.
so that makes sense. And in Nebraska, that's easy to do.
Yeah,
so, a lot of
and you
pigs.
kind of just use you would use pigs, cattle, equine for a model, right?
Okay.
And that's what I had done. And during that process, the problem was that there's this virus that's in pig semen called porcine reproductive respiratory syndrome virus. Lots of words, but basically it's devastating to the population. It's transmitted via semen. So I worked out a way that removes that from the semen so that you had a disease-free sample, and then
Wow.
you could use that for insemination and have it disease-free litters, which was pretty
That's
awesome.
huge.
So I just really saw like how this could help.
And how old were you at this point when you came up with that, the way to do that?
20, 21.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, most people that age are not in the lab 24/7 making these tubes and but you know when you like are hooked on something and
Yeah.
you have an idea and a passion, nothing gets in your way,
Yeah.
right? And so that was my 20s.
If you told your dad when you were like 15, like when I'm in my 20s, I'm gonna be handling semen every day. You would have been shipped off to some island
Or locked up.
I think he still thinks that every time. My next idea, I'm like, Dad, I got 300 mils of elephant semen. Oh, good God. Right? So it's all the same, just 20 years later.
I'm
It's all
sure
good.
at the coffee shop, it's always, so what's your daughter up to? Not much.
Nothing.
No,
I haven't talked to her.
he used to, but now he loves it because he
Good.
goes to Africa with me. He's seen firsthand.
Awesome.
So now he kind of gets it a little bit
It's
more.
true.
It's not,
Yeah.
once you like get past that, because, and it's so funny, there's
Right.
some words in the English language. Oh my God.
Right.
Just- I get all flustered and get the vapors.
Right?
Yeah.
And honestly, once you get past that and realize what it's really doing, I mean,
Exactly.
really what you're really trying to accomplish.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can get over that.
They're really used to it. My whole family, my friends. It's they'll come in. I'm like, can you label these semen straws? It's like just normal language.
It's part of life, yeah.
There you go.
But after that, I then decided, I really wanted to make a change in the world for endangered species, and I knew I had to get more education. So the Smithsonian Institution was, the top-notch program, one of the few in the country, and you don't just get in. So they said, that's great, come work for us for free for a year. And,
yes.
And so I decided to sell what I had, packed my cat in my car, and drove out there on a big leap of faith, and didn't turn back. And worked in the lab of the top reproductive scientists in the country for elephants.
That's
Won her over,
amazing.
and then she asked if I'd do my PhD with her, and it was on figuring out why African elephants in zoos don't reproduce like they should. So I dove on that opportunity, and one thing led to another. And I'm from Nebraska. I had opportunity to stay out there, but I really wanted to bring something unique back to Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I felt I could do that from here. So luckily, with the support of the Smithsonian, I had a little girl at that time. I came back to Omaha, and I had done some work at the Lincoln Children's Zoo, Omaha Zoo. And, since that time now, I run a nonprofit to support this work because I want to help as many institutions and zoos and wild programs as I can. So it gave me a little bit more
Yeah.
flexibility. So here I am.
It's kind of cool because you got one of the top zoos in the country and in
Yeah.
the world. I mean, a great zoo right
Yeah.
here. And so we're kind of privileged as a community because we hear about the things that they're accomplishing at the zoo. And every once in a while you do hear about trying to get animals to reproduce in captivity.
Yeah.
It's like, is it psychological? Is it physical? What are you finding out as far as the elephants go?
Yeah, you nailed it. It's all of those things. If it was only as easy as just looking at a reproductive cycle and saying, hey, she's an estrus, hey, wow, that would be easy. But it's the complicated structure of them having the right exhibit, the right habitat, the right social environment, the right physiology, the right... so I did a lot of work on body condition, which is another way of saying fat. But now I can't say animals are fat. I've been through communication training. I may have gotten in some trouble.
Really?
Calling animals fat.
Oh, there's somebody will get
Shaming.
offended.
She's shaming.
There's somebody out there to get offended by everything.
Right. And I was like, it's from a good place, right? I don't follow up with saying fat and go away. I then provide, some recommendations and opportunities.
That's
anyway. Awesome. So we find it's a lot of different things. But the cool
sensitivity training. That's
there
what I was trying to think of.
Sensitivity
That's
training.
what you need. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I had to go through all of that.
Oh my God.
But the cool thing about that, so a lot of my first work was looking at obesity in elephants, right? And I found that one of the primary reasons, so in African elephants, female elephants will cycle or able to be pregnant throughout their entire lives. And we found that more than half of elephants of reproductive age didn't even have a cycle. So no cycle means no pregnancy.
Right.
And so my research was trying to figure out why, looking at all those things you mentioned, weather, social, all of those things. And we found the primary thing was this body condition or obesity. So I developed a scoring system that actually they use in
amazing.
cattle. So
And
I
it's the same
applied
way
it
for
to
people too.
Yes.
It can affect the same thing for people as well.
Wow.
And the really
Wow.
alarming thing about it is the obesity rates in elephants mirror human obesity in companion animals. So 75% were overweight, 33% obese, which is exactly what humans, cats, and dogs, which is really
That's
interesting,
odd.
right?
Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy?
Yeah. So anyway, that
Wow.
was part of what I had done. But yeah, so now elephants have body condition, not fat.
Very good.
I will from now on
I make that clear.
talk about my body condition.
Right. I was just texting my wife
I know,
earlier
right?
today about my belly body condition. I got to reel that back in a little bit. So that's funny. You got in trouble for that.
I love
And,
it. I love it.
if you're not getting in trouble once in a while, and you just know you grow, you mess things up, you grow, you fix it, you go
fix it
on,
and
but
move
you
on.
don't let it defeat you, right?
That is amazing. Let me ask you too. I think I asked you this the other night, but just so I make that point because I know our listeners are familiar with Stephanie Arney, and I didn't know if you were familiar with her, who worked with Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom for a while, and she kind of stepped into the Marlon Perkins role, and now she's moved on to a TV show. But she's advocating for the environment and for animals,
Right.
And same kind of thing. But she's from small town. She married a guy from Wahoo,
Yeah.
and is from here. And it's just like, this is amazing because
Yeah.
you're both in very different ways.
Yep.
Are doing very big things.
Yeah.
But to
and
think that somebody from the middle of Nebraska like you could change the way that elephants from the other side of the world, how they can reproduce and we can assist them. That's just crazy to me.
Or in the zoos across the country.
Exactly.
It is crazy, and it also is. It feels sometimes like overwhelming, but it also feels like a responsibility. And I feel like I was given this mission for a reason, and so you just do the next thing, right?
Yeah.
And I was under some organizations that I thought I could do what I thought was needed, but I really couldn't. Like, I really needed to be under my own organization where we could take some bold steps fairly quickly. So instead of like writing a grant, thinking about that, waiting 2 years, the problem has gotten too far. Some of these zoos or specific animals needs help, the next day. So I really wanted to take some bold steps. Zoos have been around a long time. Elephant reproduction is continuing to be more and more poor. Not that zoos, it's their fault. It's just a lack of information.
Right.
So now we have some information. We have to take some calculated risks. And I just try to help zoos push that along in the most politically correct but aggressive
Good for you.
way that I can.
Fat's fat.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
I'm like, why am I being told this? I know. No, but the cool thing about that was when I got to present at a conference about that, and I even said to the audience, who here has a fat elephant, you know?
Yeah.
If 75% of you aren't raising your hand, you're lying, right? And it was so cool. It was kind of like everybody raised their hand. It was kind of this, okay, we can just say it now. And the cool part was they recognized it. And it wasn't like a shameful thing. And then the bigger part was, now what are we going to do about it? And it was cool. And that's what, as a zoo community, it's recognizing where we might have done things wrong, but having the courage to admit it, to raise your hand, and take steps to improve it.
So then you go and you collect. Do you have like zoos contact you and say that we have a bull elephant that's about ready, it needs to be collected? You go out there, do it, and then they inseminate then, or how? What's the process like?
So the process can look a lot of different ways, but it was more of me initially, and still to this day, getting zoos to collect in the first place. We're at this point where we need to improve reproductive rates. Right now, for every 5 deaths, there's only 3 births. Right? So we're at a negative growth rate. So we've done all the predictions, and we just need 6 births per year to get a positive growth rate, which you think that's not many, right? We can do that.
Yeah.
And we have 160 elephants to work with. We should, as a community, be able to do that. So a lot of the last 2 years has been me pushing and kind of playing the shame game a little bit.
You would not think it would be that difficult to convince them to do it. That's what that's what zoos want us to continue these. Why is it so hard?
When you said 160 elephants, too,
Uh-huh.
is that how many elephants are in zoos in America?
Yeah, so this is specific for African elephants.
One particular.
So there's African and Asian, and so there's around 300 collectively.
That seems like a small number to me.
It does.
For as many zoos.
Yeah,
right? So, it does seem small, which also makes it more restrictive. So if you're just looking at, so I'm primarily looking at African elephants right now because they have more reproductive issues. So it's kind of like an emergency situation. What do you do first, right? Treat those that need it. And then at the same time, be doing the same thing for the Asian elephants. But of the 160 African, only 32 of those are males, right?
Wow.
And so you're already looking at 32 potential males. And some of them are older, and some of them aren't trained for that. So a lot of it is me getting zoos on board to start training their males at age 8, so they're used to that process.
And so, I'm going to say too, just so we can kind of go there a little bit. But when you're talking about,
we
can go there. When you're talking about the reproductive process for a lot of larger animals, and horses is one that I'm familiar with, but it can be dangerous.
Right.
And when you have a low number of animals, it's easier on them if you do what you call assisted insemination, right? I like that instead of artificial. I like
assisted
that.
Sounds better.
Assisted.
Yeah, it does sound better.
Yeah, it does.
Communication training.
There you go. Me and my sensitivity. But it does. It makes sense for the animals. And like you said, you have older animals or possibly injured animals that aren't capable of physically performing the act.
Exactly.
That if they are trained to be okay with the collection,
right,
then it takes a lot of stress off of them, and also probably for the females as well.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
Well, and a lot of it is because many zoos don't have males. Right?
Yeah,
so Repro 101,
you need a boy.
You need a boy.
Yep. And transportation's kind of out of the question.
And so it's not out of the question. We're starting to do that more. I'm trying to push for zoos to do that because in the wild, that's what males do. They don't live within the group of females and their calves. They're out on the outskirts.
Of course they don't.
Right.
They're men. Anyway, go ahead.
So we can do that.
Down at the watering hole.
You have no idea how many similarities there are.
Right.
Like, we could do a whole show on that.
Everybody's throwing their trunks around.
That's right. The trunk party down at the water hole.
Males are it.
That's totally what they do.
All too familiar. Yep.
Is what it
I can
is.
only imagine in your community itself, when you guys are behind closed doors.
Right.
I'm sure the humor nobody would understand except for the people behind closed doors.
Right. It's really
everybody else would just be
fantastic.
appalled.
Yeah. Well, no, we have been to restaurants and we all of a sudden notice there's nobody sitting around us anymore.
They all left.
And it's either one, what we're talking about, or two, we were just in an elephant barn for all day.
Right.
Well,
Pick one or both. I don't know.
that's awesome. I love this. Now tell me, okay, your organization.
Yeah.
It's 4elephants.org.
Yes.
The number 4.
The number 4.
Why is that?
Right? Because FOR was taken.
I love it. There's so many easy
Jill,
explanations.
This was
for
my
things.
main
Great.
thing. I said, everybody's going to think there's these 4 elephants. And so now I have to have a story of these 4 elephants because everybody asked. And I knew it was going to be a problem. But,
How many
the
different
address
kinds?
is
Okay, how many different kinds of elephants are there?
2.
Okay.
I know that doesn't work.
All right.
Well, so initially the name was, I've tried everything. So initially the name was called Nebraska for Elephants. And because I really like the Nebraska values behind it, because I'm really proud of that. I think, that grit, that it has a lot to do with it. And my primary funders have been Nebraska. And so I kind of wanted to give back in that way. And I just wanted to show, Nebraska has a role in the global environment and global
Very nice.
decisions. But then I got a lot of feedback that, if you want more supporters from a national level, you might want to eliminate that part of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you've seen the logo Nebraska still at the root behind it because that's where it is.
I love
and
that.
those values are still there. But yeah, so the 4, I have to think of something catchy. Sorry, I wish it.
No, honestly,
It's great.
That is catchy.
Yeah.
Because honestly,
Okay.
and the story honestly is better than if you had 4 elephants.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
just gonna say.
The
Okay.
fact that you don't have 4 elephants is better.
That's all I needed to hear. Finally, somebody told me that. Thank you.
So okay, it's been hovering out there. It's been sitting out there. You have to tell us how on earth you actually get the semen out of the elephant.
Right.
How you do it.
Right. Okay.
Go ahead.
Because
I
know.
everybody's
Nobody's
we've waited
listening to
21
anything
minutes
else
into this
except-
podcast so we asked the
How
question.
do they do that?
How on earth does that happen?
Well, number 1, you can YouTube it. It's out there.
Right.
But
Okay,
number
fair
2,
enough.
I'll tell you.
You might get flagged, but I'm just. No,
Maybe.
you won't. No, you won't. Anyway,
No,
okay.
so it's like they do in other species. So it's not anything that hasn't been happening for 30 years, right? But for elephants, so it's a rectal massage where we're trying to stimulate the different reproductive organs, prostate, other organs that will stimulate semen production. So we actually have a team. The big thing at zoos, which is really awesome, is that safety first, right? And the elephant's willingness to participate. So it's never...
If he doesn't want to do it, it's not going to happen.
Right.
He's an elephant.
Yeah.
That's
But he
just-
usually wants to
right.
do it, so it works out just
Right.
fine.
Again, similarities.
guy.
Similarities.
This is ridiculous, right? I gotta go in the shoe.
Right.
Yeah. You show up, walk through the door,
Again.
and all of a sudden they're all standing there like,
Heyo.
"Hey,
Tails
over here."
wagging.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, they get used to it.
Do they? Do they
know-
really?
They know her.
It's like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah.
They see you walk in like, yes.
Carrie's back.
Before you get into the way,
Anyway.
how often can you collect from one elephant?
And we're figuring that out now. Is how often should you collect to get the best consistent samples, right?
Yeah.
And so right now we recommend collecting every 2 weeks. And again, this is kind of what's been done. There's been other scientists working on this in the past, and so kind of they've recommended that, and
Yeah.
that's what we've been doing, and that's what we're seeing working. But I also have now recently recommended because we were doing a insemination procedure, and you have limited time. You have a couple days window when she's in estrus and will ovulate, and that egg will live. And so we're trying to get bulls collected so we have fresh semen. And so I actually recommend collecting multiple days in a row, and that's based on how they breed in the wild. They'll breed multiple days. So everything I do, so my Africa program has been huge on getting benchmarks of
This
what's
kind of
normal.
makes sense to me because if
Right?
you've got a herd of female elephants, they all end up cycling together.
Right.
That's a whole other thing. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Just like that's not an old wives' tale.
Right.
Okay. And so he's got to get busy.
Right.
There you go.
And often.
There you go.
So,
And is
so,
that
yeah.
why just in general, not women, but female
Nature.
they cycle together because there's usually one bull, one whatever, and he's got to pow, pow, pow.
Right.
Like
Oh my
during
God.
that time. Well, he's got it. That's what he's got to do.
I mean, even
Right?
Have you ever said
That's-
sensitivity
pow, pow, pow.
training?
he
we
would fail.
don't have it here at Parkville Media. We don't have sensitivity training here.
So
There you
But
go.
yes, but that
Okay.
was something that really wasn't practiced, and I always try to relate it to nature, right? What
Right.
happens in that nature, we should try to mimic as close as we can,
Makes sense.
because you start, going the other direction, and so that's what we've done, and it's worked really, really nice, and so
Good.
yeah, which is good. So we're making some good strides in the right direction. But because I know Pat's looking at me, okay, back to the
Back
semen.
to the-
you left us at rectal massage. So,
I
God.
did.
Yeah.
So we have 2 people doing the rectal massage because it's quite tiring.
And there
because
actually is instruments that are created
actually-
just for this.
you actually use your arm.
Okay.
Yep.
That is just, it's unbelievable
Now,
to me. It's it's fascinating.
I have done that, like the AI on cattle. Mm-hmm. That was part of FFA.
Right.
So I have done. I know what you're talking about, but not
So I have
on
an assistant.
Not on that.
Not on, I haven't done that before. that was on the female. It was the insemination part.
Right, right.
So okay,
So,
so I
yeah,
get that because you have the big plastic.
Yeah, so you have the
sleeve.
big plastic sleeve,
Yeah.
and they're on a bench, a step stool, so they can reach the rectum. And so they clean out the feces first, so they have good contact with the reproductive tract, and then they massage the rectum, and then the penis will drop out. Can I say penis on here?
Yeah,
Okay,
for
great.
sure.
And then somebody is
And
below the
drop
elephant.
out. How big is an elephant penis?
my goodness.
Like 4 feet.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that like on nature shows. And
Yeah.
It just looks
and again,
crazy.
safety things. So the
Sure.
zoos are really great about the elephant goes in by itself, so it's not stressed out. Safety things all around. Somebody's kind of near the elephant with this it's called a catching sleeve,
Right.
which basically is a pole with kind of looks like a net to catch fish, but you're going to collect semen. And they put that under the penis so that they can collect the semen. They don't want to be under the elephant for safety reasons. And then, within 3 to 5 minutes, we usually get our first semen sample. And it's always based on the elephant managers. Is the elephant good? Does he seem not to be agitated? And it's a pretty... it's a quick process. The elephant seems to enjoy it just fine.
Right.
Well,
Saving a species, and it's working. But then,
Okay.
yeah.
okay. 2 questions. One, when you said you don't want to be under the elephant, is it kind of like not like a squeeze chute, but something
Yeah.
similar to that
Yep.
they're put in so that they're kind of like it's like thunder jackets, a thunder coat.
thunder coat.
Everybody's so they can just kind of be held.
Exactly. Be
Right.
held so they can't turn. So it's safe
Right.
to
Hurt
the people,
themselves.
and they can't hurt themselves. But still enough room that they can move to get the proper stimulation. For,
Okay, now the other thing you said 3 to 5 minutes. I'm just curious.
All right.
That's an
Does somebody-
eternity.
Does somebody keep track? Is there like somebody who's like? Is there a competition? Like is somebody like record holder? Like
Not yet.
He's the golden arm.
Right.
I was going to say,
I mean,
I have to say,
30-second Randy.
there are certain stimulators, the people that do the rectum massage, that are usually the one that
They're-
will result in the semen collection.
so they probably charge the highest fees.
yeah.
I'm just
They should.
right.
Yeah.
Should, yeah, because that's
That's what I'm
time's money.
saying. Yeah,
Time's
time's
money.
money.
Yeah.
But an
Because
elephant,
the less time it takes, the safer it is for the elephant.
Yes, yeah. And anytime
I'm
it's
trying to be
unsafe,
practical,
Right.
I know.
Makes sense.
But it can be from 3 minutes to over an hour, right? So it depends. And some elephants are all very individual on whether the semen is produced right away or if it's actually produced when nothing's happening. So
Yeah.
they massage and then nobody's doing anything and then he'll provide the sample. So it's all, every bowl is unique. But that's
they?
only half, aren't they? But we have to figure this out for each individual, which
Yeah.
seems, and just the teams to get involved and trained and feel comfortable. But then my part is really doing looking at the semen sample, looking at the quality, and using different extenders so that it can live.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
that's kind of a lot of what I do is trying to perfect how do we maintain its survivability so we can use it for insemination. And then also working out protocols to cryopreserve. So cryopreservation, once we get that down, which I'm really close to, we're getting some good results.
Is it similar to what they use in humans?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Kind
So
of
I
along those-
worked in human medicine and infertility for a while to kind of see what was
Sure.
new. And then once I learned what I could learn, I got out to apply it to endangered species. But
Yeah.
it's exactly the same. And so the goal is we can maintain those sperm cells until we need them for
Right.
insemination, whether it's in a week, in a year, in 10 years, in 20.
And you
Yeah.
have you go to Africa quite often, a couple times a year, right?
Yes.
And you have a field lab there.
I do.
Do you collect ever on wild elephants at all that are captured?
We will be.
Yeah.
So that is part of my program goals now, is because we really need to, right now there's regulations and laws that don't allow more elephants to be imported from Africa, but we do need to improve our genetic population and just to have more more elephants.
More diversity. I'm sure that you want
yeah.
to, instead of having a small
And
pond.
how cool would that be?
Yeah.
Instead of having to import elephants, you can just import semen.
Yeah.
So you can't
Right?
even import
Right.
semen yet?
Not right now.
You
We're
can't collect
working
it?
on. We can collect it from
Okay.
there. I'm working on. Actually, I'm going there in just a week, and so
Wow.
I'm having some of these conversations to start at least collecting it over there, starting at a bank over there, so that then we can work on the import permits.
Because you got the laws. You
Yes.
got the actual collection, but then
Yeah.
you've got the legal
Yes.
side of it.
There's
Yeah.
always all of those facets. But,
Yeah.
to really make this work, it's really taken all facets. I'm a reproductive physiologist, but a lot of what I do is talking to people
PR.
and getting people on board
Yeah.
and training people and making them feel comfortable with what I'm trying to do.
Once you get that ball rolling, then you can spend more time doing what you love to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
Yeah.
working in the field and in the
Yes.
lab.
Yeah, Africa
Yeah.
program has been huge for this. I started that 10 years ago, and it was really small donation, a lot of my personal money, crate by crate of equipment, 9 crates out of a time, bringing to Africa to set up a lab.
Wow.
It's the first of its kind like that there. And, working in Africa as an American woman, it took a long time to build that trust, and that I'm here to help you. There's no
Did you
other
have an
motive.
ambassador to help you or
No,
to facilitate it? I mean, it was
so-
just like you just showed up.
So when I first went with Omaha Zoo, that was instrumental.
That had to be
years ago
helpful,
because
yeah.
I met a lot of people.
Right,
And then
right.
when I started to do this elephant fat study, I really needed to know what elephants looked like in the wild. And
Yeah.
so I knew I was limited. If I'm just looking at zoo elephants, of course they're all going
How
to look the
fortunate
same.
is that, though? I mean, as a scientist, because for people, there are no people. Well, you can't. They're out there, but you can't go near them. People in the wild, you know what I mean, that are untouched by
Right.
Yeah.
how everything, just
Yes.
civilization, how it's
Yeah.
evolved, and to see how their day-to-day routine is probably untouched and
Right.
unchanged over a
Right.
long period of time.
Right.
They're just still doing what they do, and then all the elephants that are in the zoos
Mm-hmm.
are left up to the imagination of the people that
They're
kind
caring
of
for them.
decided how to care for them.
Right.
Wow.
I totally get why you think
Wow.
that you sometimes feel it's overwhelming because it looks like when you're looking at it that you are like facing a mountain because you're trying to change everything when it comes to this, and
Right.
All
it's
the
pretty
protocols,
it's pretty
yeah.
amazing.
It-
I mean, it really
yeah.
is, and I can understand why you'd feel overwhelmed, but
Yeah.
you obviously have clear goals and you obviously are doing the right thing, so you're going to get there.
fascinating.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's very fascinating.
Well, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be overwhelming, but I also then have to take a step back and say, I was given this mission for a reason. So just do the next thing and keep everything going, when it feels like, because the nonprofit was necessary to, I think, for the long-term sustainability of this. And then it's not mine, it's the community's. That's what a nonprofit
Right.
is. When I'm gone, I want it to continue and I want it to change the fate of elephants in zoos and the wild. That's a pretty big mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think it's possible. And so, of course, we need the support to do that. We need
Yeah.
the support to optimize these things. We need the, and again, I want zoos and other places to buy in, and I think they will. It's not saying you did this wrong, do this. It's look in the mirror. We've done some things that probably weren't in the forward direction, but hey, now we know. And
We've learned some new
we
things.
still have time to reverse it. And I do think as a community, we can and we will.
Yep.
But I'll keep pushing
That's
as
great.
much as I can, and having Les Vogler's input
Yeah.
on this was huge because, diving into the semen aspect, a lot of people are like, oh, why would you do assisted reproduction for elephants? It should be natural. Absolutely. If we were in a state we could just do
Ideally.
natural, awesome. Sorry, we're not in an ideal
Yeah.
situation. So, I'm working towards this we have to do assisted reproduction and natural to get the population stable. At the same time, we're changing how zoos manage elephants so it is more natural. So there are bulls, there are
It's
multiple
kind of coming.
bulls.
It's
So
like pull
both.
back on one side and gain ground on the
Yeah.
other, and
You-
somewhere you'll kind of get it back to where it should
and you
be.
can't just wait for all the science, right? It's kind of like we have to act now. We have to take some calculated risks at the same time, build up the science and what we should be doing properly. But yeah, so
Wow.
it's a lot, but it's important, and so
Yeah.
that's why you do it.
This has been awesome. Kari, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being on our podcast. Kari Morfeld, again, it's 4elephants.org, the number 4,
That's right.
elephants.org. If you want to check it out yourself. And you on your website, they can find out exactly what all it is that you do
Yes.
and more about how they can help.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
That would be really cool.
That'd be great.
Have you, a real quick question. working with any kids or schools or anything like that from college all the way down? I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, with our website, I have to get Omaha Media Group has put that website together.
Good.
And they have been fantastic of pushing it. And it's just beginning, so it's going to expand. And a big part of this is the education and the kids. So I go to schools all ages because it matters at all ages. And it's not only about elephants. It's more about taking a leap or challenging yourself, kind of taking the path that's not always A, B,
Right.
C. If you have that
It's
feeling.
okay if you
it's
feel like I
okay.
don't fit over here, but I want to do something like
so it's
this.
kind of that message too, don't be scared of,
Yeah.
who would think that a small town Nebraska girl can be an elephant reproductive physiologist.
Right. That's
You're like-
exactly right.
So, you can
yes,
do it.
exactly. You're
So
like
you
the
can do it.
expert.
You should at least try.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll always wonder.
Okay.
So I actually have graduate programs at UNO.
Okay.
So I have master's students that go there and do elephant-specific projects
Wow.
with me. And then through Nebraska Wesleyan and Lincoln, I have some students and undergraduates working with me.
That's awesome.
But that's part of it too, is
that's
shaping the
cool.
next generation. It can be
Yeah.
painful, but I know I was a student that wanted a mentor that was doing something a little bit different. So
I know a lot of teachers listen to our podcast.
Awesome.
And so I just want them to, just kind of put
Yeah.
a bug in their ear.
Yeah.
Might think about it because
Yeah,
it could be
give me
just
a
a whole different presentation from a different perspective, but from a native of Nebraska.
yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kari.
Thanks,
Thank
Kari.
you.
You
Thanks,
betcha.
guys. It's fun.
You guys go to kuglervision.com too. They support our podcast. They've been supporting our podcast for a while.
Yes, they
So
have.
We appreciate
Wonderful.
that very much.
Yes,
They're
exactly.
awesome.
So kuglervision.com. And when you go there right now, you can sign up for your consultation. If you have glasses or contacts and you decided, I want to ditch the contacts, I don't want to wear the glasses, you're tired of paying for new frames because you got to keep up with fashion, or you broke your glasses, or your prescription's changed, you're just renting your vision essentially
stop
over
it.
years and years, going for the procedures. And then you have a life-changing event, no doubt. But you got to start at the consultation.
Yep. Do that. Do that at kuglervision.com. You can pick your time, pick your date, pick everything that's
Yes.
convenient for you. Go and see what you qualify for and what your eyes can take. And then just do it. It'll change. It does change your life.
For some people, it's a same-day procedure, as a matter of fact. Kuglervision.com.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. It's Pat and JT everywhere.
Pat and JT Podcast, a Parkville Media Production.